Rhoda Moy Crawford, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Jamaica.
For the expansion of institutions to include particularly churches and
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the late one this Sunday evening from the UK, the 13th of December, 2020. And of course, because I'm in the UK now, I try to always at the same time try to spin myself or try to, travel the world. And I'm traveling to Jamaica, the land of my birth. Straight out of Ochi, as they would say, guys. As you know, SYLBOURNE SYDIAL here. And this is my show, which we call Connecting with Jamaica. And I believe it is very important that being in the diaspora, that I try to keep that connection. And I think the connection is very important. And I encourage people all the while to make sure that you connect with your home. And sometimes when I hear of even persons being deported, sometimes I always say people don't want to go back to their yard or for whatever reason. And I always say, I find that strange. I always believe that you must reach to a point in your life that you must always be happy to go back to your yard. So therefore, this is the closest I can get to my yard at this time by interviewing great and inspirational persons. But before I go any further, one of the reasons why I do this show, and my guest, which I have tonight, which is Miss Rhoda Crawford. Rhoda Crawford is, and I call it the rise of Rhoda. I'm not going to go into it much further. She's going to say it a lot. But you see, sometimes we see people around us. We see people walking around, on the streets, and you never know who they are. And you wonder, who is this person? And you keep looking, and I'm going to play this brief little video just to show something here about when you see people and you don't know who they are, and there's something, what should I say, something special about them. And there is an explosive dream which is in them. And there's this video which I want to play, ladies and gentlemen. And I want you to watch this video. Of course, it's me, but listen to the words before we go any further. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you're walking down the street, and I say it is funny. You're walking down the street and you see people that you have no idea who they are. If you look around right now with me, wherever you are, you'll see people, you have no idea who they are. But one thing which is profound, they are sitting on, or they have within them, explosive dreams, explosive visions. And that is funny, but also very powerful. And I find it very intriguing because, and that's one of the reasons why I always say, never underestimate any person that you see. Get to understand who they are, what they're about, because you never know explosive dreams which is in them. And guess what? And this is what is interesting. There is an explosive dream inside of you and every single person. But what we need to do is fan that flame. Use that ember and fan it into a flame, because that is powerful. So ladies and gentlemen, as I always say, don't go with the flow. Now, I must say to you, ladies and gentlemen, when I say don't go with the flow, please, I'm talking to a Jamaican audience at the same time. It has nothing to do with the telephone company. Totally nothing. I did this long before the telephone company. So flow, listen, if you're going to sponsor my show one time, what I say is don't go with the flow, but make sure you go with the flow, the telephone company. So I'm just setting the stage right there. But listen, before I go any further, I'm going to bring in Miss Rhoda Crawford. And I think she'll do the best of the introduction. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Take a flight and go all the way to Jamaica. Waboom. Rhoda, how are you?
Good evening, SYLBOURNE. Good evening to our viewers in Jamaica. Good night to our viewers in the United Kingdom. Thank you for having me on your show.
That's great. And I put my disclaimer there, about the flow thing, because I just don't want next thing Flo call you and say, boy, I'm not gonna work with you because you mess up my life, or they say you mash up my life, as the song say. See, I'm in tune, tune to what going on in Jamaica with the Mari. But listen, I opened before we talk a bit about it, I opened it the show, and I used that video. And I tell you why I use that video is because we sometimes see people around us, and we don't know who they are, and everybody, I believe, has something inside of them which is powerful. And Rhoda, I was watching the elections of recent days in Jamaica, and I've looked at different persons, and I said I need to interview different persons, but how I want to interview different persons, because of the political dynamics of Jamaica, is PNP, JLP, or something like that, And hence the reason I interviewed Mark Golding before he became the leader. And I interviewed even your leader, Andrew Holness, sometime. To be honest with you, I interviewed Andrew Holness, and then he became prime minister. I interviewed Mark Golding, and then he became the leader. Now I'm interviewing you. I don't know what's going to happen after. But the most important thing is, ladies and gentlemen, Rhoda Moy Crawford is the Member of Parliament for Manchester Central. She hails from Mandeville, Manchester. She's a PhD candidate, a graduate of Villa Road Primary, Knox College High School, Shortwood Teachers College, and the University of the West Indies, Motor Campus. She holds a Master's of Education degree in Educational Administration, a bachelor's degree in language education, and a secondary education diploma in English language and English literature. Of course, she has done many more things. She's been involved with St. Martin National Debating Team, hosts radio programs in Dutch St. Martin. Career education is extensive. And the interesting thing as well is sometimes we see persons and we believe, like, now she's an MP, where did she come from? So I'm going to ask you, Rhoda, who is Rhoda? Let's put it to you. Who is Rhoda?
In addition to what you just mentioned, just a bit of background information. Yes, I'm from Mandeville, Manchester, in the constituency that I represent. I grew up in Greyground. I spent quite a number of years in Greyground with my extended side of the family, the maternal side of the family. We grew up in a little one-bedroom house made from board and zinc. And at some point, there were 17 of us living in there. What my parents have always taught me is that we can be poor, but we're not poverty. And what that meant for us, while we may have lacked certain needs, we were never to feel as though we were lesser than. We were never to limit who we could become or what we could achieve. And we weren't going to be seen on the road begging the neighbors for food or going about in dirty clothes. So from very early, my parents, my extended family stressed the importance of getting a good education. As I grew, my mother, she moved to several different communities right across the constituency. So I've lived in all 4 divisions.
Yes.
And, I am an example of the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. And my reason for saying that, when my mother had to go to work, there were many evenings, many afternoons, she had to leave me with the neighbors. So the neighbors were very integral in my whole growth and development in all aspects. There were instances too when members of the community would have assisted with paying my tuition, sponsoring me a textbook. So I'm really a true example of a daughter of the soil.
And I'll just play something here just so people can see another side of you.
My name is Rhoda Moy Crawford. I'm the JLP candidate for Manchester Central. I grew up in this constituency. So this is the shop. Mr. Bunny used to operate it when I was a little girl. And on the upstairs, at one point, I lived there with my aunt, Princess. So this is the standpipe right in the heart of Greyground Square, where I would catch water, myself and my family members. And this is the other shop that I would be sent to buy food items. This is the tank that my great-grandmother used to sit with me, especially on Sunday evenings. This is the one.
See, you never tell a lie a while ago.
You know, it's important to tell you a story. Some persons are ashamed of their background, but I use mine as a tool to inspire and to encourage others, to show that, boy, if I could have come from humble beginnings and could become successful today, there is no reason or excuse why a person should allow their circumstances to limit what they can achieve or who they can become.
Yeah, I do find it a very inspirational thing, Rosa, and it's the reason why I call it the rise of Rhoda. When I see you ride on that bike, and I was, my people were putting the video together. I said, wow. And when someone sent me that video with the bike, I said, that's wicked, man. Just riding.
Nomination day.
I'm sorry?
That was nomination day for the September 3rd election.
Okay, that was nomination day, yes. And when you were growing up in Jamaica, and you know, you're a teacher as well, and you've been traveling with St. Martin's, and did you see yourself enter into politics, or did you see yourself being an MP? I think that's a good question.
I've always been interested in leadership, and it stems from wanting to give back and to make the lives of others better, because so many persons have had to pour into me to help me to become who I am. I've always had a passion to give back to the community, and I have a passion for service and people, and that's why I first started out being a teacher. And while being a teacher and being a politician, it's quite similar, because when you're in the classroom, you're responsible for a group of students. You get them at point A. By the end of the year, you're expected to get them to point B. And what I've learned while growing up is that it's not good enough to sit on the sidelines to say, hey, I'm not satisfied with how the system is working. If you want to be really effective, I think it's better to get involved in this and be in a position to really effect the changes that you want to see. I've always been a people person. I've always been interested in giving back, empowering others. And I see both being a teacher and being a politician as two of the best avenues to do that. While growing up too, while I was at high school, I was a prefect. When I started Shortwood Teachers College, I was the head of the student body. And I would have served in various other positions of leadership during my schooling.
Yeah, and sorry, that's interesting what you're saying there. But when did you see yourself, like, should I say, did you see yourself, I know you said teaching, but did you see yourself like being an MP, or did you see yourself here now, or did you see yourself winning that election, if anything? Yeah.
All right, so I've always been around the politics growing up. My mother, my aunties, cousins on both sides of the family were workers of both major political parties. So the persons from my mother's side were supportive of the Jamaica Labour Party, and they were either indoor agents, outdoor agents, runners, drivers. And my father's side of the family, same positions, but for the PNP. So I've always been around the politics. I've seen how it works. But when I became a bit more serious about the politics is when I started my first degree at the University of the West Indies Mona campus. And the G2K, they have a G2K chapter. So I did there. And of course, the G2K being a professional affiliate group of the Jamaica Labour Party, I quickly became vice president of the chapter. And then I moved on later to becoming deputy general secretary of G2K nationally, and later vice president to Floyd Green when he was president. Yes. So a part of our roles and responsibility while you serve in those positions in G2K would be to carry out political work in different constituencies right across the island. Mm-hmm. So I have had the opportunity to work in several different communities, several different constituencies. And also back in, I believe, 2011, when the JLP lost the election, yes, again, in my capacity as a vice president of G2K, I was one of the persons selected to lead the field operation of the review that was conducted into why the JLP had lost. So I led a team of data collectors, and we went into all 63 constituencies, interviewing focus groups, interviewing young people, interviewing older people, pretty much to get an insight. What is their vision for the Jamaica Labour Party? What do they expect of their leaders at the local level, at the national level? what are some of the changes they'd want to see, all those things. So being involved in those kinds of activities, it of course it intensified my desire to enter into representational politics. But when I really got serious about deciding to offer myself and to enter into representational politics, and not just representational politics,
Yes.
but to choose Manchester Central. I would have had discussions before deciding to enter into Manchester Central about looking at other seats, but I didn't want to represent any other constituency. And my reason for that, even while I served as a teacher, or even while I was still in college, teacher training college, or at the university, I would always go back to the communities where I was raised. And when I go into these communities, Wilbin, for example, right across from Grey Ground in the square there, where the Grey Ground New Testament Church is, where I was christened. I grew up not seeing pipe water in those communities. When I moved to Hearties, the same situation, no running water. We used to get water from the neighbors. And as time progressed and I kept returning to those communities, I realized that not much had changed over the 32 years that I've lived there. And the PNP had the constituency for 32 years. I'm 32, by the way. And I just felt that I've always been giving back from whatever little I had. So I said to myself, I want to be in the position where I can really effect change and to make the lives of those who have helped me to become who I am, to give back to them, improve the life, improve the communities. And that is what influenced my decision to enter into representational politics and to seek to represent Manchester Central.
Now, I'm not going to make any comparison with you and any other politician in the world, but there's one politician in the world of a particular country who said he joined politics because he didn't like how things were happening and he wanted to make a difference. Let's leave him to one side. So therefore, your driving force was wanting to make that difference, just like you were a teacher, wanting to make a difference in children's life. So therefore,
more than that, I really felt I didn't feel satisfied to know that, hey, I've become a teacher. I lived abroad. I was a director in one of the government agencies and was quite comfortable. I didn't feel good to know that, hey, here I am living comfortably, while persons in the constituency, especially those who would have poured into me, they would have fed me, they would have clothed me, they would have assisted with my tuition, that they were living less than. And so I decided that wasn't good enough.
No, that's interesting. So tell me now, and before I go there, ladies and gentlemen, I've got Miss Rhoda Moy Crawford, the youngest and newest MP of the recent elections in Jamaica, and talking about the rise of Rhoda. Rhoda, when I say the rise of Rhoda, what does it conjures up in your mind? Because that was my topic, the rise of Rhoda. You know, the rise of an individual. You talk about your history there. What do you say as a rise? Where you rising to?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where the path will lead me. For now, what I'm focused on is representing the people of Manchester Central, bringing about the issues I would have brought forward during the issues: inadequate water, the poor condition of the roadways, a lack of adequate access to education and training, garbage collection, the provision of employment, the need for street lights. Those were the issues these are the issues that I'm very passionate about.
Yes.
And what I want to see happen, I want to bring a resolution to those issues. And actually, I've started to do a fair amount of work in the very short time in the different areas that I would have mentioned. So when you use the word the rise of Rhoda, for me now, it's a little girl coming from a very poor background, you know, many persons growing up in one bedroom, to be able to achieve academic success and now to be in a position to represent the people who have poured into her. That is what the rise of Rhoda means to me. Right. So for now, I'm not too concerned about government ministries and all of those things. I'm concerned about representing the people of Manchester and representing them to the best of my abilities.
Yes, yes. Now let's talk about, interesting you mentioned the consequence, and I think that is the most important thing, and I'm sure you'll agree as well, because even in the UK here now, I mean, right now the Prime Minister is on the quest regarding this whole Brexit thing, but what he's actually recognizing that he has to do is listen to the constituents, or those who gave him that vote in order to deliver Brexit. Now you have got your constituents who have put that trust in you at this time to deliver. I've seen pictures of you with the water, dealing with the road, and you're on your feet getting in it. Now, what's with COVID now, which is around, and the pandemic which we are in? What is the challenge like on the ground with your constituents, Rhoda?
Well, I don't know if I'm to laugh about it or I'm to cry about it, but
yeah.
For me, when I get on the ground, get into the homes, get into the communities, I always, sometimes I take masks along with me, I take along sanitizers and try to use the opportunity as a teaching moment to say to my constituents, hey, COVID-19 is around, and one of the best ways to deal with it or to combat it is to follow the safety protocols, which involves the wearing of masks, sanitizing, washing your hands regularly, social distancing. But funny enough, when I visit many of my constituents, they will tell me, boy, there's no COVID here. So I have to be telling them, no, COVID is everywhere, and we have to take the precautions. I think largely what I'm getting on the ground, people believe that strangers, people who they don't know are the carriers of COVID and not their friends and family. Yes. And that's very dangerous. You know, but economically, it's trying time for some of the members of my constituency. Some persons would have lost jobs or would have seen their hours drastically reduced. So there are economic challenges. So the government has responded with different various care, presenting different care packages, providing grants to assist families that are most needy. As Member of Parliament too, I would have been, my welfare funds are almost depleted already.
Yes.
Because sometimes persons come with different needs. Persons come seeking assistance with tuition for their children, seeking something as simple as a black tank to store their water, groceries, you name it. So I have been responding to the best of my ability, and nationally, the government has been responding through the different agencies, the Ministry of Labor, yes, the Ministry of Housing, and the Ministry of Agriculture. So there are several mechanisms in place to assist the most vulnerable at this time.
And were you affected with the lots of water and the rain? And I know the Prime Minister's wife, that area in Gordontown has been impacted very badly. What about your section in Manchester?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in my constituency, we were affected by flooding, but not on a wide scale as I would have seen in many other constituencies. But we have had instances of major flooding. But what I did quickly, as soon as the rains had subsided a little, I had reached out to the mayor of Mandeville and various councillors from the PNP and councillor caretakers from the JLP, the NWA, different agencies responsible for roadways and drain cleaning. And, you know, we went out on a tour looking at the drains. And what I found, apart from, in terms of the drains, I found that in some communities, residents blocked the natural flow where the water should go. So there were instances of that. There was instances of garbage in the drains. Yeah. There were instances of the drains not having the capacity to carry the water. So after the tours, we sat down as a group and we looked at some immediate solutions. And since then till now, and especially with the Christmas project going on now, with the NWA and through the Office of Member of Parliament, we are on a rapid push to clean the drains, yes, to distill them, and pretty much sensitize persons. I don't know if you would have seen a post from me on Facebook where, you know, there are some roads built in communities, but there were no drains before. So yeah, what I've had to do just recently, roads in the communities, we've had to be engaging members of the community to seek permission to run drains through their property. And the most recent one that I undertook was one in Top Coffee Grove in Belfield. So after many years, I'd never had road in some sections of Top Coffee Grove. So through the RADA program, I applied for a farm road. and the road was constructed, but no drain. So we had to reach out to property owners in that vicinity to seek their permission to have the drain built through their property, and they were able to do that. And I want to. That was very good, and I think a lot of persons may sit back and feel that all the problems to the solutions must be handled through the member of parliament, and I don't think so. I think it requires partnership with the community, partnership with the different agencies. I see when the community partners, when the agency partners with the office of the member of parliament, there's so much more that we can achieve, because the reality is, in no given financial year will a member of parliament be provided with enough resources to adequately respond to the needs of all the constituents at the same time. But when we can partner with community, partner with the business community, you know, different government agencies, different sister brother ministries, then I believe we can achieve so much more.
I can see you there, you know, on the ground with the water, and you're on the ground.
Water is one of the biggest challenge in the constituency.
Yes.
For years, we've had issue. There are communities that have no water at all, and then in communities where there's actually water, there's constant lock off of the water, or there are instances that we found on the ground where persons are paying in excess of what they're using, because based on the design of the meter, when it's too windy, the meter, it spins, and so it appears to the service provider that amount of water has been used. But without saying too much and without disclosing too much so quickly, I've already had the opportunity, my team, members of my management team and councillor, and members of the business community, we had a meeting recently with the regional director and his team, the regional director of the National Water Commission, and his team at the Manchester Parish office. And we did an extensive review of what the real issue is, why we're having this water challenge in the constituency. And we know what the issues are. So what we will be doing now in the coming days is to steadily move to a resolution one by one, because it's good to provide black tanks to constituents, it's good to pay to truck water to constituents, but that's not sustainable. It's just that from my approach, until the sustainable developments can take place, until we can have the real solution in place, I can't sit back and watch my constituents suffer. So for example, sometimes when I deliver water to the communities or deliver black tanks, I see some persons commenting on Facebook, hey, why are you giving out black tanks? Why are you chucking water? Why not put in waterways? But I think that's person responding with inadequate knowledge. The problem that we have found that is causing the water problem in the constituency, it will require a good amount of fund, and it cannot be fixed overnight. If we're really to rid the constituency of the challenge, it's going to take at least 3 to 4 years, and that is if we have all the money in place to tackle the issues. So what we're doing as we progress, I will continue to truck water to the communities. I will continue to provide the black tanks. And what we've been doing, we're going into communities one at a time and we're laying pipes. So for example, Wilbin, a community that I grew up next to, I attended church there. They've never had the pipe water in sections of that community. And following the meeting with the regional director of the National Water Commission, they were able to move in a few days ago and to lay the pipes. We're doing a similar project in Patrick. So moving around the constituency, what is very good is that I am from the constituency. I have been on the ground. I know what the challenges are, and I know what it feels like. So nobody have to say, MP, come and look at this community, because I'm fully aware of what the challenges are. I think though, what a lot of constituents don't understand, or perhaps do not fully appreciate, is that while the issues are present and while I have knowledge of the issues, they can't be fixed overnight. It is impossible to fix 31 years of neglect in 3 months. So I want to use this opportunity to appeal to my constituents who are watching. I'm asking for patience. Give us a little more time.
Yes.
We're tackling the issues one community at a time, one problem at a time, and eventually the issues will be fully resolved. But I'm asking for patience in those regards.
That's awesome, and I can see the passion is about your constituents. And ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook and YouTube as well, just share this video as well, In the diaspora as well, you got persons from that constituents as well. So they'll be interested to find out who you are and what you're about. Because, when I had one of the reasons, Rhoda, why I decided to do the shows on a Sunday was I did follow the elections, and I had a competition, but he did not know Cliff Hughes. I was having a competition with Cliff Hughes because he always calls these elections. So myself with about 4 persons were on it from the United States, UK, and the UK, and we said we were tired. We were all tired because the time difference. And I said, listen, man, let's just call it, man. Let's just call it. So we called it, and then Cliff Hughes about 10 minutes after said, I call it. So we had one upon him. But I think we got so many traction, Rhoda, during that election. So many people are interested in it. And we realized that so many people are interested in what is happening. So I decided I'm going to give myself over to this period of time. And I'm glad, as you mentioned, that the constituents, it is important that you don't just give them the water and chuck the water, but you're wanting to leave a legacy for a long term, irrespective of how long you're there, isn't it? Am I correct?
That's correct.
And also because people sometimes enter into politics with all good intentions, Rhoda, and they say, these are what I'm going to do. And then after a while, things just shift. So I'm going to ask you this question now. How do you, well, you're new in the game, but you're not new in the game, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But how do you anchor yourself? How do you anchor yourself at this time? Because you're going to, I'm sure people might be calling you now. And I mean, your phone ring 24/7. How do you anchor yourself in balancing your time? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I've always had to learn to do time management during my studies. So it wasn't very difficult to transition. Yeah. Of course, now that I have won, and even before responding to that question, I don't know if you plan to ask me, but I don't know if you, but I just wanted to comment on the fact that many persons didn't feel that I would have won. Yes. Many persons didn't feel that I would have won, but having been on the ground with the people, I saw the confidence, I saw the desire for a change. So I knew that I would have won. So I knew I know what the challenges would be in terms of how to manage time now. Well, it's difficult, and I'm learning, if I'm very honest. What I did immediately after the elections were won, well, yes. I don't know if you were following, but before the 15th, when we were sworn in, yes. I had to report for the recount because, of course, the independent candidate who had polled 49 decided that he needed a recount, and of course, that being his constitutional right.
Is that the Chinese guy? Is that the Chinese guy?
Rohan Chong.
Okay, yes.
So I had to be in court for 3 days. But anyway, following the swearing-in exercise, what I did immediately was to have meetings with the critical agencies. So the National Water Commission, the National Work Agencies, the NSWMA that is responsible for garbage collection, CDF, that's the Constituency Development Fund, of course, SDC, and all the critical agencies in the constituency to get a full understanding of how those agencies operate and how I can respond to the needs of the constituents through those avenues.
Yes.
So while that is being done, of course, you have to be attending Parliament. There are several parliamentary committees that I've been appointed to, and they meet at different times during the week. Yes. So those have to be attended. And in between meetings, in between Parliament, I have to make time to be on the ground to visit different communities, to still say thanks, check up on the constituents, what is happening. But what I've done now, I have 2 admin assistants in place. Each of them are provided with a constituency cell phone. I have a constituency email. So when persons approach for assistance with their various needs, what we ask that they do is to direct those needs, the concerns, either via the email or to the constituency cell lines. And what we do, we respond to the needs in batches. So we do the first 150 per batch. As soon as we're finished with the 150, we move on to the second 150, we move on to the third 150. And the reason why I put those mechanisms in place, and I try to explain that to the constituents, if I was only to respond to needs based on those who approach me or walk up to me, then it would always mean that it is the last person who reaches out for some assistance would benefit. It would mean that the person who asks for a black tank in August, and I may not have been able to respond in August, they may be forgotten. But when we use this email system and the WhatsApp system, there are timestamps on it. We can see the request came in and respond accordingly. So, of course, from time to time, you'll have constituents saying, boy, Miss Crawford, we sent an email or we sent a message from last week. We didn't get any responses yet. But we have to respond in batches so that we don't have anybody left behind. And we're not looking for supporters of the JP or supporters of the PNP when we're giving assistance. What we, however, do, though, is to look to see if the persons are registered in the constituency if they're over 18. Because think about it, if each member of parliament is provided with the same resources in terms of the same allocation for the...
My apologies. I'm trying to get something in, but keep talking, ignore me, yes.
Okay. Yes, I was saying one of the requirements is that the person is registered in the constituency if they're over 18 and if they're supporters of the JLP or the PNP.
And I'm glad you said that there, because you dealt with the question I wanted to ask about the PNP and JLP constituents when they approach you. How do you deal with that bit there, you know? But you understand it.
The minute you have become member of parliament, that's my view. The minute that you have become member of parliament, you have to figuratively hang up your green JLP shirt, because you're not, while you're a member of the Jamaica Labour Party, and while I am a proud member of the Jamaica Labour Party, having become member of parliament, I'm very conscious of the fact that I am a representative of all the people, whether they are supporters of the PNP, JLP, or if they have no views. So irrespective of the political persuasion, once my office is approached, once I'm approached for assistance, then I respond. The only requirement, like I've said, once they're over 18, is that they're a registered member of the constituency. It would be unfair for me to be provided with, for example, the CDF, 20 million annually. Another member of parliament from a different constituency is given the same allocation. If I am to take allocation from my 20 million to give to someone from another constituency, it means I'm denying persons from my constituency. But you may ask, so if a person applies for some form of assistance and they are not registered, we ask that they visit the EOJ office and just provide evidence that they have registered. So we're not waiting for them to be produced with the identification card. Once we have seen the step, and I believe the constituents have to meet the representatives halfway. I don't believe in the handout culture, but I believe in the help out culture. You help me to help you.
Yes. So you sound like you're even giving us a lecture here, a class. I'm saying everybody's listening attentively as to how the process works. But I want to go into something else. But let me just play this video. I've been edging to play this video because many people like it, actually. I'll show this video here. Yep.
I, Rhoda Moy Crawford, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Jamaica, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of Jamaica, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of Jamaica. So help me God.
Okay. You know the question I'm going to ask you. What happened there? There's a lot of little things happening there. I mean, I know you got sworn in, but what was all that? Break it down.
Well, largely the members in the audience from the government side, the JLP, they were pretty much teasing my political opponent. You know, he had used a slang out and stunted. So they were pretty much mocking him.
Yeah.
And, I took the oath. And, as a mark of respect, went and I nudged the prime minister, and then I moved over and nudged the opposition leader. Because, for me, some persons were saying, boy, why you go over there and touch Peter Phillips? The reality is, at the end of the day, we're all Jamaicans. And it's three of us that's sitting in the parliament, whether we are from the PNP or we're from the JLP. And the reality is that the public views all politicians pretty much the same. And we have one mandate, or we should have one mandate, which is to see to the betterment of our people and our country.
Yes.
So we might as well get along.
And I like how you did it, because I hear them say, go to Peter, go to Peter. But I sense they were saying go to Peter, like another Peter, at the same time, but it shows a cordial respect and friendship. And listen, I know this for years, and people always say it all the while, you got people in the constituents maybe fighting against each other, but the parliamentarians, they're all buddies in a way. They're all friends in a certain way. They're all godfathers and godmothers of each other's children. And we see it even here in the UK, whereby politicians, in a way, they are mates. And it's sorry.
It's when you said that, because even while I was on the campaign trail, whenever I happened to come across my political opponent, we always greeted each other friendly. Nod your hand, take a handshake, even pause to take pictures. On the contrary, sometimes you see supporters of the PNP being a bit aggressive, and not really to me, but to supporters of the JLP, and getting in conflict. And I've always used the opportunity to say to them, this is not necessary. If at the end of the day, if you want to support me or you want to support my opponent, that's entirely up to you. There's no need to fuss and fight, because the reality is you live in the same community, right? So when I come into the community, I give my service, I represent, and I represent well. And then I go to my home in the evening. You are living next to your neighbor. What's the sense you're fussing and fighting? And the reality is, as much as my opponent was my political opponent, we're not being hostile. We're not in war and constant battle. So I've always used the opportunity to say to constituents, there is no need to fuss and fight. And I think that's the direction we need to move the politics to. And I don't like the person individuals in a contest, and I never did that while I was on the campaign trail. I focused on my issues. What is it I wanted to do, and why I want to be elected member of parliament. That's where we have to get the politics.
No, that's very good. That's very interesting. And moving away, while we talk about the constituents, we talk about you becoming sworn in now, and now you're dealing with issues on the ground now, whereby there are policy issues. I saw this video as well. I just placed there.
Institutions to include particularly churches and sports clubs. I heard the comment from my colleague senator, but I think oftentimes we overlook some very critical spaces that perhaps we consider them safe havens, and I believe the church could easily be considered such. The church accounts for very large bodies of people, and just like
the reason why I brought that up there is not about what you're talking about there. Now you're getting into policies and issues now. What would you say then is your policy mandate, or sometimes you become a parliamentarian? What is it that you want to focus on, or what you want to zero in on? I mean, I'm sure there may be many, but what would you want to focus on?
All right, though, but to give the public a clearer picture, a clearer understanding of how the parliament works.
Yes.
So apart from the fact that you are first and foremost a representative of the people representing a constituency, you are elected to sit on various committees. So while you may have your independent thoughts and you may have issues that you're passionate about, you're sometimes confined to the area that you are placed. So for example, the clip that you just showed, that's from a sitting of the Joint Select Committee. A Joint Select Committee has been put in place which comprises of members of both the upper house and the lower house. That's members of parliament and senators, and of course technical teams. And that committee, what that committee is charged to do is to review the sexual harassment bill so that it can be passed into law. So that's one of the areas that I'm very passionate about, and I'm so happy to be sitting on that particular committee.
Yes.
Because I think our culture, it's almost as if our culture normalizes sexual harassment. So you walk on the street, somebody says, Browning, that kind of thing. People don't see that as anything wrong, but then it moves from there to something worse. And in particular, what I was speaking about is the fact that, so we were looking at the bill and we take submissions from various groups.
Yes.
So of course, sexual harassment, a lot of time the focus is on the workplace. So what I was saying is that the bill has to include places outside of the workplace. We have to include places that are usually considered church haven. And I believe the church is one such entity, not because the church is where we go to worship and to be in community with others and it's godly. It doesn't mean that there are not instances of sexual harassment in those places.
Yes.
So what I'm calling for is that the bill includes persons in those places, landlords and tenants, persons traversing on taxis, buses, every place, gyms, everywhere where people are.
Yes.
We must ensure that the bill protects everyone and not just limited to a particular group.
Yes, yes.
So that's what I was focusing on.
Well, you got
very much focused on the sexual harassment bill at this time.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of work cut out there, so we want to wish you all the best with that. And in our last moments, we noticed that you got some award of recent days. There we go. So you're already getting awards already, parliamentarian, or is it what was
all right, so what had happened? Of course, this is the first time we have so many females sitting in the lower house, in the House of Representatives. We have 18 female members of parliament, 14 on the government benches, and 4 on the opposition benches. And over in the Senate, we have 4 on the government benches and 4 on the opposition benches. So this is the first in the history of Jamaican politics where we're seeing such record-breaking number of females. So what the Ministry of Culture, Sports, Gender and Entertainment, in collaboration with the Jamaican Women Political Caucus and other groups, they came together and they decided that they wanted to honor, especially recognize all the females who would have contested the September 3rd election, whether they were successful or not, and of course to involve the government senators. So what was done at that function, they had several awards where they singled out individuals. So being the youngest member of parliament in the current parliament, I was singled out and specially recognized. So that's what you see me collecting.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to some greater things coming up in the future, Rhoda. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what would you consider is your let's say when I look at the different ladies there, I see something inspirational, and someone already mentioned earlier, passionate young lady, Miss Rhoda Crawford, and someone said earlier, positive, yes, this is it, positive influence to the youths of Jamaica. To the youths of Jamaica at this time, what is your message to the youths, and what is your quote or your sort of word that you want to leave us with today?
So, my message to the youth would be, first of all, that their dreams are valid, irrespective of how big they can't attain their dreams. They have to have a firm belief in self and a clear vision of how they want to go about those dreams. As I progress and journey throughout life, I've always been told, especially because of my age, when I was at Shortwood Teachers College, and when I had a desire to run for the head of the student body, student government, I was only 18 at the time, and no one before me would have been college president so young. And, there were persons who I would have gone to, lecturers who would have ordinarily supported me. And when I told them of my desire, sadly, they said to me, 1 and 2 of them said to me, boy, Rhoda, you're too young. I don't think you're going to win. And you know, you weren't the first year president or the second year president, and we've always had a tradition where the first year president becomes the second year president, and the second year president becomes the college president. And you know, that kind of made me feel a bit broken. But I had to dig deep and look within myself, and knew that I had the ability, I had the, and I contested the election and won by a landslide. And similarly, during this journey, I would have often read comments, persons on Facebook, even when I make a post, or people on the ground would make comments such as, "You're wasting your time, you're not going to win." So I had to literally make the effort to block them out. But more than that, though, for me, when persons were saying you were wasting your time, for me, that didn't discourage me, because whether I had won or not, it was always my view that no day, no time, no minute spent in service to the people could ever be considered wasted time, because there's no way I could be on the ground empowering people, helping people, and that's deemed a waste of time, whether or not I would have won the election.
Yes.
So my call to young people: believe in yourself, work towards your goals. You know, sometimes your parents, your spouse, your children, your pastors, those who you look up to, won't even believe in a goal that you might have at a particular time. But if you believe in yourself and you dig deep, then you can achieve anything, and be willing to make sacrifices. No real reward comes without sacrifice. One have to be willing to make sacrifices and invest in the dreams and goals. You can't sit back and wait on someone to move you to where you need to get. You have to get up and get active. There are several quotes that I would have lived by. You know, I first got serious about quote when I was in high school. I remember when I was in grade 11, our form room teacher had given each of us a quote on a paper. And she said that we were to go by it. And mine was, "If you can dream it, you can become it." So when I moved to St. Martin, the school I was, the motto was, "What I am to be, I am now becoming. If it's to be, it's up to me." And then, you know, as I moved through life and would have met upon challenges, I've lived by the motto, "This too shall pass," and the fact that the strong will continue. But the latest quote that I'm dealing with now, or using, and it came about especially in the election, and you know, of course, a part of my journey has really been spiritual too. You know, grew up in the church, believer in God, and I know that you have to rely on external forces for strength. And you know, I have an aunt who's a pastor. I believe she's watching now. I see her online, Valerie Fontaine. And I remember, you know, when you would have had your down moments when persons are speaking negatively in your life, you know, she would remind me of the David and the Goliath story. You know, how people didn't believe that David would have defeated Goliath. And I remember she telling me, "Wear my own armor, don't walk in anybody's footstep. Bring me to the table, be my authentic self." And out of that came a quote: "If there is a Goliath in front of you, there's a David within you." And it doesn't have to be limited to politics. It can be related to anything at all that you're doing. Any challenge that seems too big for you to conquer, just remember that the fact that that challenge has come before you, there's a David in front of you. So you just have to work hard. You have to keep focused, be true to yourself, be true to the people. And that's about
it. So I want to capture that last one there. If there's a Goliath in front of you, be reminded that there's a David also in you. Is that correct? Is that, did I paraphrase it right?
So if there's a Goliath in front of you, there's a David within you.
There's a David within you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wonderful way to stop the show today. This was supposed to be a 30-minute show because Miss Crawford is a very busy lady. You know, we have been trying to get this thing together, and you know, fortunately, we jumped the gun, and I got another 30 minutes from her into 1 hour. Yeah, but before I wrap up, is there any last word you want to say, Miss Crawford?
Well, just to say to my constituents,
yes,
thank you for your confidence in me. And I am fully aware of all the different challenges, all the issues that I would have championed during the campaign trail. I intend to address them. I intend to tackle them, but I'm asking for your patience. We cannot fix 31 years of neglect in 3 months. So I'm just asking for your patience as we move to empower people and to build communities, one community at a time, one person at a time. And I want to thank my extended support system, persons even from the diaspora, persons from different parishes in the country who continue to inspire and to encourage me. Thank you so much for your support. You know, no man is an island, and you know, you're all the way in the UK, and I just want to say to those persons tuned in from the UK or other areas in the diaspora, without going too much into that topic, just to say that we see you, we acknowledge you, we thank you. We want to encourage those of you who have been giving back to your community and your country and to your families. Continue to do so. Remember that you are ambassadors. There are many persons in the countries where you are residing that they have never been to Jamaica, or perhaps will never visit Jamaica.
Yes.
But through their interaction with you and the work that you do in the diaspora, that gives them a view into Jamaica and what Jamaica represents. So while we at home, you know, try to move in a positive direction, try to improve ourselves on so many different levels, we try to control the issues of crime. We're asking you in the diaspora to represent yourselves and your country to the best of your ability. And always know that Jamaicans, wherever we are, we will always shine, because we're little, but we're talented.
Those are beautiful words to conclude the show, Rhoda, and that is great. And it's a good word also of encouragement to the diaspora, you know, to realize that we are ambassadors, and that whatever happens to us, or whether it's good, is Jamaica say, what? And if it's bad, is Jamaica say, oh no. You know what I mean? So both ways. So we are being seen as what should I say, ambassadors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and also I want to encourage all your constituents to subscribe and like to the SYLBOURNE Show. Tell them, you know, they get update from Rhoda here.
I sure will. But just before you run, I see a comment from one of our viewers that she says, looking forward to the resolution to the water issues from Dunsinane to Lincoln, waiting 18 years. But that's not my constituency. That's Northwest Manchester. That constituency is represented by Michael Phillips. I'll be sure to pass the message to him.
Fantastic, fantastic. Miss Miles, you got one in. We're getting straight to the horse's mouth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, and thanks so much for Rhoda Moy Crawford for sharing her time with us. And this is the first of many, because I'm inviting her back on the show again to any update. It's very important that we recognize that, you know, as the video which I started with, that there's explosive dreams which are in people. And those explosive dreams which are within us is trying to get out. And we're going to find avenues that we've got to step in to realize it, because many people have dreams and it's being pushed away. The whole advent of pandemic and COVID is two things are happening. People are actually getting more time to actually realize their dreams, realize their passions, and to ferment it and to cement it as well. And Rhoda said two things. One, once you dream it, you can do it. Is that what you said, Rhoda? Once you dream it?
You can dream it, you can become it. And what I am to be, I'm now becoming. If it's to be, it's up to me. Exactly.
Bingo. And the big one and the most powerful one is that if there's a Goliath in front of you, in whatever things, circumstances, jobs, opportunities, and it looks impossible, there's a Goliath. Remember this, that there's a David also within you.
That's right.
Did I get it right now?
You got it right.
I got it right. Okay, so I want to thank you, Rhoda. Don't leave. I'm when I disconnect. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and remember to like and share the show, and you know, and remember to subscribe to the SYLBOURNE Show. And believe it or not, later tonight at 12 o'clock UK time, which is 7 o'clock Jamaica time, I also have another show with Mr. Kevin Alex Bent, who insists that I should do a show with him tonight. So I'm going to have another Jamaica show later today. It's going to be a marathon thing, because great things happening in Jamaica. We can't just let the Chinese and everybody take over Jamaica. We have got to also control Jamaica as well. Aye.
Yes, so thank you so much for having me. Good evening to our viewers in Jamaica, and good night to our viewers in the United Kingdom.
Yes. And thank you to all those persons who commented as well. And have a good night, and God bless you. Thanks.